Welcome everyone. Thank you and welcome to the Chamber Workshop Series. The Colorado River Valley Chamber of Commerce exists to be a catalyst, collaborator, and champion for our businesses and our communities. The Garfield County Library seeks to connect our communities to a world of possibilities. These two organizations have joined forces tonight to meet the needs of our business community through education and collaboration. Tonight's workshop features Rebecca Rogers. She's the Consumer Protection Lead for the Garfield County Public Health. Rebecca has over 30 years in the food and hospitality industry and is certified in food safety. She is president of the Western Colorado Association of Environmental Health Officers and the Western Slope representative to the Colorado Environmental Health Association. Please help me in welcoming Rebecca.
Thank you for that wonderful, wonderful introduction. And thank you guys for being here. And it looks like we've got a few more people walking in, so we'll give them a minute to get in and get settled. If you guys are okay with holding on for just another minute? Okay. Yes. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. So just a real quick disclaimer, just so you all know that this presentation was generated with the assistance of AI and Copilot, but it was heavily edited by myself. So, but I just have to share that with you. So what's our menu for tonight? We are going to start with the basics. We're going to talk about the different types of licenses. We're going to talk about temporary licenses, mobile licenses, and fixed licenses. They all have their own unique things. Then we're going to serve up the main course, which is the application platter, and what are the ingredients of a good application. We're going to give you some chef's warnings to avoid getting burned, some pitfalls and pro tips. And then we're going to sweeten it up with a little Q&A for dessert. Ask away. We're happy to clarify with expertise. So just real quick, why does licensing matter? Right? I get this question a lot from people is, why do I have to be licensed to sell food? Because it protects public health by ensuring food safety standards are met. And it aligns your business with state requirements and keeps you operating by the rules. And it builds your customers' trust by showing you've met the standards for safety and sanitation. The real big piece of food licensing is public safety, is making sure that you're serving safe food, because nobody gets up in the morning and says, I'm gonna make somebody sick today. But if you do, don't tell me, okay? So there's many different types of licenses. There's a temporary license, which that is for community events like the fair or strawberry days or farmers markets or craft fairs. And this is for your short-term gigs, right? 1 or 2 days, maybe for a weekend, and not every week. There's what's called a mobile license. This is going to be what you typically call a food truck or lonchera, a cart, a push cart like a hot dog cart, or a trailer that may actually have to be hauled by a truck. And then we have what we call a fixed license. This is going to be your actual physical location, such as a cafe, a restaurant, bakery, grocery store, etc. So here's some recipes for success. Plan your ingredients carefully. You need your plan review, which is going to be the foundation of your license. You need your menu and layout. If you're a mobile or a caterer, you're going to need a commissary agreement with a commercial kitchen. Don't forget food safety training. There's a lot of things that contribute to keeping your food safe. And then there's fees and inspections. That's where I come in. Those are the finishing garnish, and there's a lot more to it than you think. You take all of those different ingredients and you put them together in the correct order, starting with the plan review. And through that process, you mix everything together to get your final product, your license, your business. And I can't stress this enough. Food safety training is really the key. How to keep food safe, hot food hot, cold food cold, how to cool foods correctly, how to make sure nothing bad gets into your food. So here are some common plan review pitfalls. Submitting a plan review that is missing key information for the approval, like leaving out required documents such as a menu or an equipment list. Not coordinating with your city or town during that plan review. In addition to public health and the licensing, you also need to work with your local city or town to determine if they require additional permitting, sales tax licenses, business licenses, etc. And don't ever underestimate the timeline. Thinking licensing is like a 2-minute microwave meal is going to get you in trouble every time, because it does take a while. It's more like cooking birria or cooking, a roast that takes a long time at a low temperature to get it just right. So let's talk about licensing. We have what we call retail food licensing, which is storefronts and food trucks. You're selling food directly to the end consumer, directly to the public, okay? Then we have what we call the Cottage Food Act, which is home kitchen creations. So that's going to be more like baked goods, cookies, breads, cakes, foods that don't require any sort of refrigeration for safety. Cottage foods can be produced in home kitchens and are not licensed additionally. And then there's manufactured food, which is more large-scale productions for business clients that say you want to sell your salsa to a grocery store so that they can sell it to the public. That would be considered a manufacturer. Manufacturing is regulated at the state level, not the local level. So if that's something you're interested in, we can definitely connect you with the right people. But for most of you here, you're going to fall either into that retail food category because you're selling directly to that end consumer, or you're going to fall into that cottage foods category because what you're cooking doesn't require refrigeration for safety. So let's dive into retail food. Retail food requires that food must be prepared in an approved commercial kitchen or a food truck to ensure safety and quality. It cannot be prepared in a private home. Retail food licensing requires that you have a license from your local public health department to ensure compliance with safety regulations. And retail food, the sky is the limit of what you can do. This is where creativity really comes into play. And you can offer such extravagant or simple menus. Let's talk a little bit more about cottage foods. So the Act permits non-perishable foods like jams, baked goods, honey, uncut whole produce to be sold. It can be done in your home. These foods may be prepared in a private residence, which differentiates cottage foods from commercial operations. You still have to have food safety education and a food safety certification. And sales are made directly to consumers through online sales, farmers markets, however you want to get your word out of what you're selling. And then finally, manufactured food. Sorry, I didn't realize that this got all scrunched. This is for operations that produce, store food products, dietary supplements, cosmetics for business clients, that their regulatory compliance is done through the state and must be done in registered kitchens or spaces meeting state and federal regulations. Facilities must register with the state of Colorado and with federal agencies for interstate commerce. And operators can use the CDPHE website for registration or more info. So let me give you some pro tips from the chef. Call us early. Get your local health department involved early. Don't skip on that food safety training. It's so important. It's also a requirement of licensing depending on what you're producing. If you're unsure where to start, hire a food safety consultant. There are people out there with expertise that can help you work through this process. There's also community resources through different organizations that may be able to help you, and I can share some of that information in a moment as well. Ask us questions. We're happy to answer questions. We can't do it for you, but we can help guide you. So let's stir the pot. What questions do you have? Ask me anything. You're all very quiet.
But my initial question was really about consultations, and are there people out there who can help you work through that? But you did a really good job of answering that. Could we just stay on that topic for a bit longer?
Of course, of course. A food safety consultant is usually someone like myself who has many years of experience in the industry or has worked in regulatory role like I do now, and they can help you navigate all of the different things that are required in that plan review process. They can help you navigate how to look at equipment, and is your equipment sufficient for the menu you want to serve. That's really, I'm really glad you brought this up, because this is something that really comes up all the time, is that you have an operator who has this wonderful menu, but it's huge, right? It's just pages and pages and pages and pages of stuff. And they say, well, I'm gonna cook all of this and then I'm gonna cool it so I can reheat it later, okay? But they only have one refrigerator and one little refrigerator. And that's something that comes up all the time, to be able to say, well, I really love this menu, I really love what you're doing here, but is that one little refrigerator going to be enough to cool all of these things that you're saying you're going to cool? You need more refrigeration than you think, right? 9 out of 10 times you're going to need more equipment than what you think. The other one that comes up and a food safety consultant can help with is ventilation. Do you need a certain type of cooking hood to cook the food that you want to have on your menu? Or is this something that can be done without additional ventilation? And so a food safety consultant can help you kind of navigate those things. There's also food safety consultants out there that will figure out how to set up your space ergonomically, like, how many steps do I have to take from the stove to the refrigerator to the prep table? And does it make sense in how the food is being prepared and how the flow of food is happening in that space to set it up that way? A food safety consultant can do a lot of different things, and they can be very, very helpful. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure somebody else has more questions. Don't be afraid. Nothing?
What about
¿Tiene fecha de expiración el permiso?
Does it have an expiration date?
Does what have an expiration date?
De la licencia.
Oh, so licenses run January 1 through December 31. And so you have to renew your license each year, but you only go through the plan review process once, unless something major changes. Yeah? Okay. Sí.
Si agarro la licencia como para poner un negocio en un restaurante, esa misma también me funciona si quiero vender en una trailita.
If I get a license to open a restaurant, does that same license cross over into maybe a food truck?
Excellent question.
Yes.
No, they are two separate things. Think of it this way. You have McDonald's, and we have 4 McDonald's in the valley, right? And they're owned by the same company. But they have 4 separate licenses because each facility is licensed based on the facility, not on the ownership. Okay? Good. What else?
What about training? Where do we go to get training? Is that something that we go to the state for?
Excellent question. So there's a couple different ways to get training. If you just need food safety training for the Cottage Foods requirement, the Cottage Foods state webpage has some links to some different places that provide that training, but you can really Google's your friend for everything in my book. You can Google food safety training and that will give you a list of providers. But for the requirement of the Certified Food Protection Manager that is part of licensing, retail food licensing, there are 12, I think, now providers that are accredited to provide that certification. And you have to be certified through an accredited program. The nice thing is most of these providers are online. The training is completely online, whether it's video training or you read something and then watch a video and then take a little quiz. The training is online and it's about an 8-hour training. But you can break it up over time, right? And do it as you have time to do it. You can do it on your phone, which I think is awesome. You can do it on a laptop. You can do it on a tablet. And then once you've completed that training, you have to have a proctored exam, whether it's an in-person proctor or an online proctor. And it's a big deal, right? It's a really in-depth training process that teaches you a lot of really cool stuff about how to keep food safe. And once you get that certification, it's good for 5 years, so you only have to do it every 5 years. But it's something to be super proud of, in my opinion, right? You worked really hard to get that certification, be very proud of that certification. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no such thing as too much food safety training. Let me say that really clearly. And so if you want, I can show you real quick like how to find the information.
Sure.
Bear with me for one moment. So really easily, so if you just type in food safety training, it's going to give you all of these different providers, okay? There's all sorts of different providers. And this is going to be more of your basic food safety, basic food handling. These food handler cards do not meet the requirement for the certification. If you want to get the certification, search for Certified Food Protection Manager. And again, there are many different providers. State food safety, this one right here, I do have experience with and have gotten feedback from a lot of operators that this is their preferred provider because the information is presented in videos and you can listen and you can watch. And that as far as translation for Spanish, that the translation through state food safety is one of the better ones and it makes sense. Whereas some of the other providers, I've heard feedback that the translation is a little iffy at times, that sometimes it's like, I'm not quite sure what that means. And so you want to make sure whoever you choose is part of the accredited program, and they will say that on their website. And the big difference between all of them is price. Some of them are more expensive than others, but most of them start at about, I think, $65 to $70 for the training and $25 to $50 for the exam. And then there is the additional fee for the proctor to take the test.
But the same level of certification no matter
Same
where?
level of certification. They all teach the exact same information. They just teach it in different ways.
Perfect.
And again, there's no such thing as too much food safety knowledge, ever. What else?
So I want to start a food business.
Okay.
What's the first thing I do? Do I make a menu? Do I make a business plan? Do I get certified? What's step one?
Step one, menu.
Interesting. Didn't really expect that because you build the rest of it around your menu?
You got it. Your
Excellent.
menu is going to drive everything you do,
Interesting.
right? Because think about it. If your menu has sushi on it, you're going to need different equipment, different items, different utensils, different food than if your menu has pancakes, right? So your menu is really that starting point, right? And that's going to drive everything else that you do. So when I get a plan review, so say you submit your plan review, I don't even look at the stuff in the first couple of pages. I find the menu immediately. I go to the menu and I start figuring out, okay, what's on this menu? Then I go back and I start looking at drawings, how your kitchen is laid out. I start looking at your equipment. I start looking at, where is the hand sink in relation to where your cooking equipment is. I start looking at, okay, you say you're going to cool all this food. Okay, there's 1 refrigerator, 2 refrigerator, 3 refrigerator. Oh, and you even have a freezer. Awesome. Cool, you have enough cooling equipment. And then I start to look at the rest of the physical facility, right? And so really think about your menu being that focal point of what you're doing and building out from there. And then once you have your menu, then you develop your business plan. How am I going to get my menu to people? Am I going to be a caterer? Am I going to have a truck? Did I find a sweet little cafe on 3rd Street that I can move into tomorrow? Kind of thing. And that's where you start working through all of the different pieces, right? And putting the puzzle pieces together. And it's one of those things that a lot of times I think we have this great idea. Oh yes, this awesome menu, my awesome food. I'm super stoked, I'm super excited. I want to get this food into everybody's bellies. But we forget that there's all of these different things to get to that end product into people's hands, right? Think about dancing. Anybody here dance? Anybody here like to dance? Okay. You learn the steps one at a time. And when you start learning them, they're very broken, right? And you learn little bit by little bit by little bit. But then by the end, you string them all together to have this beautiful dance. Designing a restaurant or a food truck is exactly the same. You have to address each little piece bit by bit and get really good at it and then string it all together. Doesn't mean that you're not going to stumble, because you will, and we're humans, that's what we do, right? But if you have those little pieces broken down bit by bit to put into the big picture, you're much more likely to be successful. Does that make sense?
It does, thank you.
Yeah. It's another thing I really love is dancing. Go for it.
Can you talk a little bit about what happens after you're approved? What the health department involvement or what inspections would look like from there?
Absolutely. Fantastic question. So you go through the plan review process, you deal with me asking a whole bunch of questions, and you're sick of me and you're like, Rebecca, shut up, stop talking. You get your license, and then you have your first routine inspection, usually about 30 to 45 days after you open. Okay, we come, we do a full inspection, we determine what's in compliance, what's out of compliance, we share that information with you. Inspections have 3 results. The first result is passing. Hunky-dory, everything's great, we'll see you at your next inspection, which could be about 6 months or a year, depending on your level of risk. The second result that you can have is what we call a re-inspection, meaning that there was enough stuff going on that we're like, we need to come back in about 10 to 15 days and do another inspection, give you time to work on some things, maybe get some food safety education for your team, or fix some appliances, or work on hand washing, or whatever that may be. And then we come back and we do another inspection. And at that point, it's either you pass that inspection or there's another re-inspection. And we go through that process till you pass the inspection. Now, the third one, and I don't like to talk about this because it doesn't happen very often, but let's be really clear, is that third option is something is going so horribly wrong that it's a hazard to continue operating. And that results in what we call either an imminent health hazard closure, meaning you have sewage coming up from the floor and you're walking around in sewage, ugh, right? Or things are so out of control that the result of the inspection is what is called a closure. Those are very rare. It does not happen very often, so I do not want anyone to be fearful that, oh my gosh, they're gonna close us. That's not how it works. But then once you have that initial inspection, you pass your inspection. Inspection frequency is usually either twice a year or once a year, depending on the risk involved. The higher the risk, the more we're going to inspect. The lower the risk, the less we're going to inspect. And there's a lot of different things that go into determining that risk factor, which is why your menu is so important, right? Your menu is going to help determine your risk. We are always available, though, for support and questions. We really view ourselves as partners because we want exactly the same thing that you guys do, which is a thriving, successful business with lots of happy customers out in the community and everybody being safe. Does that answer your question? Do you need more clarification? No. Okay. All right. What else?
We have a little business of snack and desserts bar. We go to birthday parties, quinceañeras, etc. And we want to go. We want to have a license to go to events, like rifle events.
Yeah.
Which kind of license do we?
So you would need 2 licenses. You would need the first license for catering for the private events. So like the quinces, the weddings, whatever. That would be a retail food license for catering. And then you would need a separate license, which is that temporary license that we were talking about at the very beginning, which is for specific community events. And the nice thing is they both run for the full calendar year. Once you get both licenses, you're done for the year. You just have to renew them each year. Okay, but yeah, we want to make sure, especially depending on what your menu is, right? We would need to look at the menu to determine exactly where you would fall in the licensing. But you want to make sure that for any of the events, right, not community-facing events, but more of those birthdays and the party events, that you're licensed appropriately, that you have a commissary kitchen that you're preparing your food out of, and that you have all the necessary equipment to transport safely and to set up safely.
We do everything in the moment. Like we do like mini pancakes in the moment.
Okay.
So we don't. That's our question. Like we don't know if we need like a commissary.
Yeah, we'd have to look at your menu and figure out, you know, what's what. But chances are you are going to need a commissary because if you're doing any sliced fruit or
We do it, but in the moment, like we do everything.
but where
in the
are you
moment.
washing the fruit?
Oh, okay.
Right? So you need the commissary to wash that fruit. Where are you washing your dishes? You would need a commissary to wash, rinse, and sanitize your dishes. That's the kind of stuff we would need to look at. You may not need a full commissary kitchen, right? But you definitely might need facilities to wash fruit or to cut fruit ahead of time or to wear wash or to fill up water tanks or things like that. And so we'd want to look at that, but you would need to do a plan review and we'd figure it out and get you taken care of. Yeah, good question. What else? I can just see you thinking over there. I see something brewing. Go ahead.
Ya la licencia para el alcohol ya sería otra entonces, ¿verdad?
Is the alcohol license on a different page?
I don't do anything with alcohol. Okay? Alcohol is super confusing. You'll need to work with your local municipality. So if you're local to Rifle, you would need to work with City of Rifle on liquor licensing, or if you're in Newcastle or whatever town you're in, you'll want to work with them directly because they handle the liquor licensing. If you're outside of town limits, then you work with the county clerk for liquor licensing. But if that's something that you're looking at, I can definitely connect you with the right people. Okay? What else? Yeah.
Y una licencia para vender en la casa.
And a license to sell in your home.
So, to sell food prepared in your home, it's not licensed. There is no license that goes with that. However, that food has to be what we call shelf stable, meaning that it doesn't require any sort of refrigeration or temperature control to remain safe. So like bread, cakes, cookies, that kind of thing, but no cream cheese frosting, no custard filling, no cheesecake, things like that. And I have more information that I can give you on that. There's also labeling requirements that food is prepackaged and labeled. There are also caps of how much you can sell per item, but it's like $10,000. So that's a lot of cookies, right? You'd have to sell a lot of chocolate chip cookies to get to $10,000, right? And so you want to make sure if you're looking at doing like a home bakery or something like that, that you're really looking at what is the items you want to sell. Now, on the flip side, like tacos or tamales or
Menudo.
what?
Menudo.
Menudo, yeah, menudo. That would require licensing. That cannot be done from a private home because it requires temperature control. It requires cooking. It requires a lot of different things to maintain safety. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. What else? You guys are great. I love this. Yeah.
Yo soy emprendedora y hago comida, tacos para eventos privados como ellas, bodas, quinceañeras, bautizos, lo que sea. He trabajado en muchos restaurantes donde se han cumplido exactamente los requisitos de temperatura, refrigeración, congelación, todo eso lo sé y he visto cómo los cumplen, cómo no los cumplen. Como yo soy emprendedora y...
Déjame le traduzco eso primero. Okay, so I'm actually an entrepreneur. I actually make tacos, and I have done it for parties, quinceañeras, similar to how they're doing it. And I have worked and seen within the restaurant industry. I've seen exactly how they prep food, how they do everything. And pause. Ahora sí, Peter.
Okay.
Sí. Y quiero, como dice usted, pasar la información sobre... Mi meta ya es un food truck.
And I think my next step would be a food truck, so I do want to get information to see what would be next.
Yes, this is exactly what we're talking about as far as the plan review. And so your next step would be to do a plan review. Do you have a truck already or are you still looking?
Ya fui a información y todo, ya sé que primero es mi menú y sobre menú me van a decir qué necesito, cuántos refrigeradores, cuántos congeladores, el deep fry, la plancha, el grill, todo. Todo eso ya lo tengo contemplado, pero ahora quiero saber bien, porque cuando yo fui me dijo que Garfield County aquí, en el valle, aquí en el pueblo, solo podías tener 6 food trucks y he visto varias. Para el tiempo que yo fui ya son más de 6.
Okay, so I actually have been getting information. I already got information on the requirements. I already got information, and actually some recommendations on what I'm going to need. I already have like my menu in mind, how many fridges and stuff I already have in mind. I already looked into the food truck, but I was told by Garfield County that there could only be 6 food trucks in the area locally, and I have seen that there's way more than that. So I want to know what steps are next. I want clarifying questions because it seems like it's a bit uncertain.
Excellent. Okay. Hang on, this is going to be a bumpy ride. Okay? Garfield County does not set how many food trucks can be in a given area. That is not a Garfield County thing, okay? Each municipality, Parachute, Rifle, Newcastle, Silt, Glenwood Springs, Carbondale, they all have different rules. Okay, so for example, the city of Rifle will only allow 8 food truck permits at any given time. There are only 8 food trucks operating in Rifle. Okay, because that's a permit. That's a permit that's issued by City of Rifle. As far as I'm concerned, once you are licensed and you're a mobile, you are literally mobile. You can go wherever you want. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you can go wherever. But each municipality has different rules. Does that answer your question?
Sí. Y también tengo otra pregunta. Como dice que puedo moverme a donde yo quiera. Mi meta es establecerme aquí, pero quiero ir como el otro food truck de mariscos que viene, que hoy está en Meeker, mañana está en Montrose, el sábado, domingo está en Craig. Quiero algo así, porque quiero conocerme por todos lados.
Claro.
So my next steps, I think I want to be established in Rifle, but once I'm established in Rifle, I do want to have a mobile food truck, similar to one that sells seafood, I think, here locally, that one day they're here, one day they're in Meeker, one day they're over here, here. So I just think that's my next big idea.
I think that's fantastic.
Would it be the same license though?
So it's the same license, yes. So once you have that mobile license, you're mobile. You can go anywhere in the state of Colorado. But, okay. But you need to check in with the local public health department and the city you're going to be operating in to make sure they don't have additional requirements. So for example, you guys have all seen the fish and chips truck, right? Everybody loves On the Hook fish and chips, right? You've seen them in Battlement, you've seen them in Rifle. They got some good fish, right? They are licensed in Adams County on the Front Range, okay? And they come up here and they've got a little tour that they do. But every year, they call me, beep, bop, boop, Rebecca, we're coming up, what do I need to do? And then I have a series of questions that I ask them. They have to send me some documentation, and then they're good to go. Every single place that you would want to go, Meeker, Craig, Montrose, Delta, they may have rules or want some information from you, and so it would be your responsibility to reach out to those places to make sure you've got everything in order. It's not like you can just roll up, park on a corner, and start selling, unfortunately, because there's all these zoning laws that I know nothing about. Does that make sense?
Sí, sí lo entiendo.
Does that help? Sí. Bueno. What else?
Otra pregunta, si como tener ella la trae la móvil en varias partes, ¿se puede estacionar donde ella quiera o cada pueblo le dice dónde estacionarla?
So a follow-up question on mobile food trucks, once you have it, can you park anywhere or does the town tell you where to park?
The town doesn't tell you where to park necessarily, but the towns have what are called zoning rules, meaning that parking is allowed in certain places. For example, in Rifle, because of the way the downtown area is zoned, you can't have a food truck on 3rd Street unless it's a special event and the street is blocked off. You couldn't just park a truck on 3rd Street. So what a lot of our mobile operators do is they figure out, oh, I want to be in Carbondale, and I want to be by the city market in Carbondale. And so they look around, and so there's a First Bank over there, I think. We'll say there's a First Bank over there. So I decide I want to be in the First Bank parking lot. I call First Bank and say, hey, I have a mobile food truck. Can I park in your parking lot? And if they say, yeah, you totally can, but it's going to cost you $12,000 a month in rent. Do I want to do that? I don't know. But that's how people find their spaces, right? It's not that the city tells you this is your spot. It's more of you identify where you want to be or where you've seen other trucks right? And then say, well, what do I have to do to be there? And the big thing is, when you're thinking about a location for a food truck, okay? So I'm gonna give you some secret sauce, okay? Special salsa. When you're thinking about where to put a food truck, think about how are you gonna get electricity? Because you have to have electricity 24 hours a day to that truck. You cannot run 24 hours a day on a generator. Where are you gonna get electricity? Where are you going to get water? And more importantly, how are you going to dispose of your dirty water? And where are you going to go potty? You need to have access to a bathroom. So if you start thinking from a mobile perspective on those three things, that will help you kind of identify where to put your mobile. Does that help? Okay. So for example, let me give you a real world example. I'm working with an operator right now that is trying to find a new location. And they came to me and said, Rebecca, we found this big open field in Rifle. And the owner said we could put our mobile in this big open field. I'm like, okay, that's cool, but how are you gonna run the electricity? How are you gonna get water? Where are you gonna go to the bathroom if it's a big open field? And they went, oh, I didn't think about that. Maybe a big open field's not the best idea, right? And so again, thinking about your menu, then thinking about your equipment, think about it this way. You start very small with your menu. Then you get a little bit bigger to your equipment into your truck. And then you get bigger, where are you gonna put that truck? And then you get bigger, where are you gonna go with that truck? And it can just keep going and going. But if you start real small and grow out, it helps you think through those things. Yeah? Okay. What else? I love these questions, you guys. These are all really, really good questions. And these are all really, really good questions to ask at the very beginning and instead of already into your plan review. Makes your life easier.
I have kind of a fun one. It's a little outside of the scope.
Okay.
But one thing that's becoming more popular are incubators and community kitchens where people can come and prepare their food in a safe way. Are there any in our area? I know Grand Junction has one, and are we thinking about it? What can you say in that?
I'm really glad you brought this up. And I always tell people that you will know if I won the lottery because there will be incubators popping up all up and down the valley, because I share the same thought as you do on that one. I am sad to say that Garfield County does not have an incubator type commissary similar to the one in Grand Junction, and I believe there's also one in Delta. However, we are starting to see a couple different commissary kitchens that are designed for multiple users versus like a restaurant allowing you to come in and prep when they're not there. We are starting to see a couple different places popping up and down the valley. There's one that just is getting ready to open in Newcastle that does have some space. But it is going to be more preparation and warewashing only versus cooking. There is rumor that there could be potentially space in parachutes coming. And so a lot of times when we talk about commissaries, people often will partner with another restaurant in the sense of, you're only open at dinner, can I come in the mornings and wash my dishes, cut my fruit, and prep things, and I'm out of here by noon when you roll in to start your prep? Or vice versa, you're only open till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, can I come in at night? Also, think about, what do you need? What equipment do you truly need? Do you only need warewashing? Or do you need somewhere to prep, but you're gonna finish on site, right? Would a church work? Would a recreational center work? Would a place that has a built-out kitchen facility that is not like a home kitchen, so think 3-compartment sink, think industrial refrigerators, things like that, would they meet your needs, right? You can get creative with your commissary. It does not necessarily have to be a full-out restaurant facility. Does that make sense, or does that confuse you more? Bless you. Yeah, it's complicated. I get it. Believe me. It took me a long time to wrap my head around it too. So, you know, I have a feeling we'll probably start to see more incubators popping up, but space. That's another thing, is we just don't have the space. So.
Well, if you will, keep the chamber in the loop about
Absolutely.
any of those opportunities.
Absolutely.
And we'll be sure to share it with the community. And likewise, if you guys are looking for those opportunities, do reach out to the chamber and we'll do our best to connect you with those resources.
And like I said, if I find a big old bag of money, will be
First
one
place to go in.
Yep, that'll be one of the very first things that I do.
I love that.
¿Y qué tan cierto es de que si yo tengo una food truck, tengo que ir a cocinar a la cocina de un restaurante para traer mi comida al food truck? ¿Es verdad o es mito o no sé cómo preguntar?
And how true is it that I have to go cook my food in the kitchen in some sort of restaurant and then bring it back to my food truck to sell? Is that truth or is it a myth?
Okay, that's an excellent question, okay? If you, okay, how can I say this? Do you think it's easier to cook the food on the equipment in the truck or to cook the food somewhere else and bring it to the truck? See, yeah, if you can do whatever you need to do inside the truck, that's going to be much easier, right? But depending on the menu or what other needs you may have, you may need a commissary for warewashing. It's not saying that you have to do everything in the commissary, but that you're going to use the commissary to do the things you can't do in the truck. But if you have a flat top or you have a stove and you can cook that meat from raw directly on the truck, doesn't that make more sense than trying to cook it somewhere else and either cooling it and reheating it or trying to transport it hot, right? So again, that's why you think about what is your menu and how do you make that menu? What equipment do you need to make that menu? And if you can't put that equipment on the truck, can you adjust your menu? Or can that preparation step that can't be done on the truck be done in the commissary? Does that make sense? Does that help?
Ok. Yo llamé para hacer un food truck y le dije a la persona, quiero un grill, un baño María, un plancha y un deep fry.
Okay.
Y me dice, está bien, yo lo hago. Quiero 15 pies de tráiler. Y me dice, yo me encargo de todo. Yo llamo a Garfield County, consigo permisos, todo. Yo te mando tu tráiler para que llegues y te pongas a trabajar. ¿Es seguro que me apruebes?
Okay, so I actually had an inquiry with someone that told me they can make this happen. Essentially, they asked me what type of business I want. I said I wanted this one. I said I wanted this type of sink, this type of deep fryer, this type of flat top, this type of everything. They said they could get me the food truck set up with everything I wanted, get my permits, and just have it ready for me to work. Is that something that's true?
They can't get your permits for you, but they can set up the truck for you. You have to get your permits. They can't get your permits. Yeah.
Entonces, voy aquí ¿cómo se llama? A donde sacas tu permiso, te llevo mi menú y tú me vas a decir exactamente qué necesita en mi camión.
So to clarify, once I have my menu, can I just go here to the office here and give it to you and you're going to tell me what I need?
You'll have to do what's called a plan review, okay? So, Oh, un momento. Somebody's having fun out there. Come on, you can do it. And I apologize, this is in Spanish, but it is in the process of being updated, so it might change, or it will change, I just don't know when. So, what you would need to do, you can't just bring me your menu. You would need to complete this packet, okay? And this is kind of this front checklist of all the different things that go, that go into your plan review. But basically what you do is you print out this packet and you fill it out, okay? And so you give us all the information about your business, you give us all the information about your truck. Oops, lo siento. You give us all the information about your equipment, your sinks, etc. And you fill all this out, and then you get to your menu and your food processes, you fill that out. And so that's really what would be the start of the plan review process. So if you've got the drawings of your truck or you have photos, you'll need to submit those as well. And again, what we were talking about earlier is once I get this packet, right, I go straight to the menu, I look at your menu, and then I go to the drawing and I look at your drawing and I start to go, ooh, I got some questions. And then I look at everything else and then I come back to you and I say, okay, this is awesome. Here are my questions. And I'm pretty direct and to the point. I usually will just send you an email with bullet points of I need to know this, I need to know this, I need to know this, I need to know this. And once you start sending me back that information, if I have more questions, then I ask more questions. Or if that gives me the information that I need, I say, okay, great. Once we kind of go through this whole process and we go back and forth and we ask those questions and you give me those answers and we have conversations about what you're doing, then we give you what's called an approval and we do an inspection to get you licensed. Does that make sense? Okay. The person who's building your truck probably can't do this for you because they don't have your brain. They don't have your wonderful knowledge of the super yummy food that you're going to make. They have the knowledge of the actual physical facility of the truck, but they can't do this, right? Does that help? Okay.
Can you get approved with a mobile if you don't have a location yet?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I actually have several mobiles right now that are finishing up their plan reviews. They're almost done for licensing, but they can't find a location. And my response is, let's get you licensed, right? Let's get you set. And you can let me know where you're going to be stationed later once you figure that out. I've worked with some mobiles that got licensed, did a couple of events because they couldn't find a location, and then left the county because they couldn't find a location. So, you know, there's definitely options there. Again, my major concern is that you have the necessary equipment and are set up to serve your food safely. Yeah.
What about if like we find a commissary here, we're already licensed and everything, and we want to go for an event over there at Eagle, Carbondale? Yeah. It's going to be the same one, or we need to have another one from that county? I don't know.
So the short answer is it depends. Okay? The long answer is It's going to depend on, is this a catering event or is this a community event? If it's a catering event, fine, go do your thing. But if it's a community event, like you want to do a festival in Eagle County or like a farmer's market, like the Basalt Farmers Market or something like that, then you'll need to work with Eagle County to determine if you need temporary licensing in Eagle County. But if it's like, I hire you to come to my house to come to a community center for a birthday party, that would be no different than a caterer. And if you're already licensed as a caterer, that's absolutely fine. Does that make sense? I know it's complicated. It's so complicated. Job security. It's going to keep me employed, right? These are all really great questions, you guys. Thank you. What else?
Otra pregunta.
Yes.
Y uno como emprendedor, ¿hay probabilidad de que te pongan alguna sanción o algo por no tener la licencia?
And as an entrepreneur, I have to ask, is there any sort of, let's say I don't get my license, is there any sort of punishment to not having it within a certain amount of time? Like, what are the repercussions?
Okay. So yes, there is punishment. I don't like talking about punishment because I don't like to punish. It's really fines, right? We fine you. The other thing is what if somebody gets sick, right? Then it becomes a whole different thing if someone gets sick or a bunch of people get sick. I really, 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 really urge you to ensure that you're licensed before you begin operating, okay? And I know there is a lot of food on Facebook. There's a lot of menudo. There's a lot of tacos. There's a lot of tortas. There's a lot of food on Facebook. And those people are unlicensed. And they're producing food in their private home. You don't know if their children are sick. You don't know if their cat is on the counter while they're preparing that food. You don't know if they're washing their hands or if their dog came in and jumped on them while they were stirring the menudo. Do you want to eat that? Does that inspire confidence, right? That's why at the very beginning, why licensing matters, okay, is that it tells your consumers, your customers, that you are doing everything to ensure community safety, okay? I don't ever want someone to say, well, I can't do this, because you can, because there's 389 people in Garfield County doing it, okay? There are 389 restaurant licenses in Garfield County. So let's figure out how to work together to remove barriers, right? It is hard, and it's hard for a reason, to keep people safe. Yeah. Does that help? Yeah? Okay, good. Good.
I have a question.
Yes.
Ahorita estamos como en pláticas de a lo mejor agarramos como un coffee shop, pero no es seguro todavía. Y yo sé que ahí, o sea, pasan el café, compran los productos, ya que los syrups, todo eso. Pero yo sé que la señora hace burritos, que los hace en su casa y los vende ahí. Yo no sé si para eso necesitan licencia o cómo, o sea, yo sé que hace los burritos y los congela y ya los vende ahí como en el coffee shop. Pero yo no sé si se puede hacer eso o es una licencia que se necesita para preparar la comida en la casa.
So I have a really specific question, and it pertains more to coffee shop setting, where they just prepare and serve coffee. I've seen in many instances that they have some sort of like frozen burrito that was prepared somewhere, they heat it up and they serve it. Is there some sort of requirement for that type of setup?
Yes. Those burritos have to come from what we call an approved source, meaning someone who's licensed. So if that coffee shop is making those burritos at home, that is not approved. If I have a coffee shop and I'm buying burritos from my regular Sally who comes in every morning for her cafe au lait, that is not an approved. But if I'm buying my burritos from a registered manufacturer, like Sweet Colorado, that is approved. Does that make sense? Does that help you?
Sí, y sí se puede como sacar una licencia, algo así, para preparar como los burritos en la casa, o no se pueden preparar y venderlos en el lugar.
And is it possible to get a business license to prepare burritos at home to sell to one of these businesses?
No. No, you would need a commercial space to do that, and you'd have to become registered as a manufacturer. Okay, so this is a really great example, and thank you for this. This is a really great example of the difference between a cottage food and a licensed food, okay? So a burrito, maybe like a breakfast burrito, has eggs, has bacon, has cut vegetables, salsa, what else? You know, whatever else you're gonna put in that burrito, right? All of those foods require temperature control to keep them safe. They either have to be refrigerated, they have to be cooked, they have to be held hot, or they're considered what we call a raw animal protein or a raw animal product, eggs, bacon, right? Those are all licensable, whereas a cottage food is really those foods that it's gonna take a lot to get somebody sick. Like think about a piece of bread, right? It's gonna take a lot for that piece of bread to make somebody sick, whereas it doesn't take very much for eggs to be cooked incorrectly, to be held incorrectly, to make someone sick. Does that help? Does that provide the clarification? Okay.
Sí. Y por ejemplo, si así que los burritos, si no los compran de algún lugar, alguna tienda, o sea, que ya vienen congelados, se pueden preparar ahí mismo en el lugar, o sea, como la licencia como para un coffee shop. Si hay licencia, sí se puede también añadir como para hacerlos ahí mismo en el lugar.
So if I'm buying burritos from some sort of manufacturer, can I prep them and add some sort of elements to serve them within a coffee shop if I already have the coffee shop license?
Maybe. Let's talk about it. Let's find out what you want to do. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about what you want to do and see if it fits within the scope of your operation already. Do you have the right equipment? Right? Do you need a different kind of oven? Do you need, it depends.
Okay.
But yeah, we can talk about it. We can totally talk about it.
Okay.
That sounds exciting.
¿Y qué pasa si empiezo con un menú y después lo cambio? Por ejemplo, si empiezo con burritos y quiero hacer camarones, que es otro tipo de ingredientes y que requieren otro tipo de refrigeración, otro tipo de cuidado para la comida.
Okay, and what happens in the circumstance that, let's say I create my menu and then I decide to change it? So I go from something like making a specific type of food to switching to shrimp that requires refrigeration and all sorts of different types of factors.
So in this question, are you already licensed or are you wanting to be licensed?
No quiero licencia.
I want the license.
You want the license. So again, it's really going to be driven by your menu, and you can change your menu. That's absolutely fine. Once you're licensed, you can change your menu. Where we start looking at things is if you change from, say, doing tacos and tortas and burritos, ceviche, whatever, and then all of a sudden you say, I'm going to do sushi, or you're going to do poke bowls, or you're going to change dramatically what your menu is. That's when we want to have a conversation to make sure you have the right things. But if you say, you know what, I'm going to start with tacos and tostadas and burritos, and then in 6 months I'm going to add ceviche, and then in 6 months I'm going to add tostilocos, I don't know, right? That's fine. Or you want to do a fried shrimp special on Friday nights. Okay, that's cool. It's if you're doing something really off the page from what you're already doing. Does that make sense? Does that help? Okay, good. Now I'm hungry.
Entonces no hay ninguna licencia para las que no tenemos para una tráela para andar vendiendo en lugares, para hacerla en la casa y venderla, no hay ningún tipo de licencia.
So just to clarify, there isn't currently any sort of license that would allow me to prep food and sell from home because I don't have access to maybe a commissary kitchen.
Sí. The answer is yes. So I have a handout I can give you that outlines exactly what you can do from home, okay? And again, think about shelf stable. Once you prepare it, can you leave it sitting on the table without refrigeration, and will it maintain safety? Or does it have to go in the refrigerator to stay safe? Does that make sense? Okay.
Yo lo que he pensado es como empezar con el menudo y nosotros como hispanos es sábado y domingo el menudo.
I know. Yeah, menudo's gonna have to be licensed, period, sorry. Yeah. That, and again, think about all the different things that go into the menudo, all the different ingredients, the cooking process, right? And so I don't know if you know this, but if hot food, so like soup or menudo or birria, hot food, if it doesn't stay at the correct temperature, okay, it can develop bacteria, okay? And at certain temperatures, that if it gets too cool, that bacteria can grow really, really fast. And that bacteria can make people really, really sick. I don't think you want that. No. No. I mean, if you do, don't tell me. That, yeah, but again, so think about it this way, okay? Do you want to be known as the lady who sold the menudo that got everybody at church sick? Right? That's why we get licensed. I don't know how long many of you have been, but we have had community outbreaks. We have had events where people got really, really sick. And it's not fun for them, it's not fun for me, but think about those people who are sick, right? Nobody gets up in the morning and says, oh, the hamburger I'm gonna make today is gonna make people sick, yeah, woo, right? Nobody says that. Right? And we don't think about that hamburger, if we handle it or cook it incorrectly, that hamburger could lead to lifelong disability, death. You know, we don't like to talk about this stuff, but let's be real, right? People die in the United States from eating contaminated food. I'm sure you all heard about McDonald's and onions last September. People died in Grand Junction from onions on a hamburger.
Yo cada vez que como McDonald's casi me muero.
But that's just it, is we want to make sure, again, we want the exact same thing that you guys want. We want you to be successful, we want you to thrive, but we want to do it in a safe manner. Right? Because we care as much about your community as you care about your community, right? So yeah, I think if you want to do menudo, you need to get licensed. You're going to need to find a commissary. It's not as impossible as it sounds. I know it sounds like a big task, but where there's a will, there's a way.
Ya nos asustó, ya papá.
Necesitan traer las pruebas para el menudo. ¿Qué vas a vender tú?
Don't be scared.
I just para quinceañeras.
I don't want you to be scared. I just want you to have real knowledge, right? I don't want you to be scared. You should not be scared. Because again, there are 389 restaurants in Garfield County that are all doing just fine, okay? Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Just know that that's why we do what we do. That's why these regulations exist. That's why we have licensing. And that's why you want to be licensed, is because it shows your customers that you are abiding by the rules, right? So don't be scared. Don't be scared. Think about it.
Por eso quiero mi licencia, porque he trabajado en muchos restaurantes y he visto muchas cosas malas y van ustedes los inspectores, en el momento hacen que lo están haciendo bien y ustedes salen y todo regresa donde estaba.
¿En qué restaurante?
So that's why I that's why I want to get a license, because I've actually worked a lot in the restaurant and food industry, and I've been behind the scenes and seen a lot of things that are done incorrectly. But when the inspector comes, everything's cleaned up to look good, and then when you leave, it goes back to normal.
I know. I've been there. I ran restaurants too. The inspector walked in and we all start sweeping and washing our hands. Yeah, no, I get it. And so that's the other thing too. And I will tell you, if I'm your inspector, we're going to have a much different conversation, because my response is, you can tell me that's what you're doing, but I know that's not what you're doing. So tell me what you're really doing. Let's talk about it, right? I get it. I know. But your inspector is only there for a very short amount of time, right? It's there for a snapshot and trying to get an idea of what's happening. But that's why I say, let us be your partner. Let us help support you. Let us, ask us questions if you're not sure about something. I really want to get away from the idea of the health inspector being mean and scary, because this is not mean and scary. Yeah, I am not mean and scary. I mean, I suppose I could be if you want me to, but I'm not gonna, right? And so really understand that your health inspector, public health, we really are here to help. We really are. We really, really are. And I know that in the past, that has not always been the case. But as long as I'm here, that's what I strive for. And you have my word on that. So don't be scared. No, don't be scared. Don't be scared. What else?
¿Dónde la encontramos para
Where
ver?
can we find you?
I'm right down the street, like literally right down the street. My office is based in Rifle. I have some handouts that I can give to all of you. Honestly, because I am so busy, and I know not a lot of people like this, the easiest way to get me is email or text, okay? But here's the really cool thing, is you can email me or text me in Spanish, and I can respond in Spanish. I can read it, I can write it, I just can't speak it. Well, I take that back. I know all the bad words. So. Oh my goodness, you guys are so great. I really enjoy this. And like I said, I could talk about food all night, but I don't know if they'll let me. Yeah. Are there any other questions? Oh my gosh, so cute.
What a cutie.
All right, so our final takeaway. Licensing isn't too spicy if you prep it right, okay? Know your type of business, follow the recipe, and serve it safely. This is how you get a hold of us, the Consumer Protection Team. You can call or you can email, and this will go to our entire team. And if it's for me specifically, you can say Rebecca, and they'll get it to me. But if you email the team, you're much likely to get a faster response, just because I'm busy and I'm all over the place. And sometimes it might take a day or two for me to get back to you. It's not means I'm ignoring you. It just means I need a little time. Okay? And so what I brought with me, let's see here. So here is,
I can help pass some of these out.
business cards that have the same information. This is a little brochure about the different types of licensing. So if you want. And if you have specific questions about cottage foods, so what can you make at home? I have some information specifically about cottage foods. And I also have them in English too. But yeah, help yourself. And whatever you don't take, we'll send with the chamber. But thank you guys so very much. I really, really want you to know I appreciate your taking the time to come join us tonight. I really appreciate all of the questions, very smart and good questions. And I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share this information with you guys. So thank you.
Whew, holy cow, that's a lot, Rebecca.
Right?
Thank goodness that we have people like you to guide us along that.
Like I said.
Thank you guys for being willing to take on that challenge to serve some great food. We really appreciate you coming out tonight and hearing everything that Miss Rebecca had to say. So as a reminder, this was recorded. It will be on our website, so if you need to go back and check it out again, please do that. We have a little QR code right here as you exit. If you don't mind scanning that, taking a survey, let us know how this was, and if there are any particular topics that you really want to know about, that's how we know what it is that you guys want to hear about. We're going to let you off the hook for December, so there's not going to be a workshop for December. We hope everybody enjoys the holiday season. Our next workshop will be in January 14th. Independent World is coming back to present on our most requested topic, which is marketing, and they will be talking about setting up the year for success. So we hope to see you then, and everybody enjoy the rest of your evening. Go get some dinner.
Gracias.
Gracias.